the thing is, Paula, this is a good point that Jennifer makes, is that one of the things that red state governors, like the governors of Texas and Florida, have done is they've sent the problem, if you want to call it a problem of undocumented people, and they've shipped them all over the country, like the old, segregationists and the civil rights used to put black people on buses to say, hey, let's send them to your city so that you will be upset. And
wait, what? First off, whose wig did she snatch? Because come on, you're appropriating that. Well, it looks like Trump's hair. It actually looks like a hair. Boris Johnson had a haircut. First off, welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch with you, top of the second hour. Listen coast to coast terrestrially. You can also watch the simulcast, the video component, which you can stream on channel 347 DirecTV. Watch us on X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. So I got to point this out, and I made note of this earlier on social media. So sanctuary cities and sanctuary states literally advertised their refusal to cooperate with ICE, their refusal to cooperate with customs, border and customs. And also absent from her criticism here is the acknowledgement that Biden has been doing the exact same thing for longer with less fanfare. Oh, except he was actually a segregationist. Oops. He actually was a segregationist. So she misses that with her rambling here. Everything's got to be about race to her. Hers has to be the most boring damn show to produce. Honestly, every day it's the same thing. What are you going to talk about today, Joy? Racism. What are you going to talk about today, Joy? Race. What are you going to talk about today, Joy? Racism. What are you going to talk about today, Joy? Race. It's the same thing every day. It gets boring. She can't offer any other analysis because she has to see, that's her grift. She has to see everything through that lens. Where's the acknowledgement that Joe Biden was doing this a hell of a lot longer? I mean, hell, send Joe Biden out there to take the win on that. He was doing this before Abbott and DeSantis and everybody else. He was loading people on planes and sending them to wherever. Oh, but y'all didn't criticize that because you're all hypocrites. That's why. Because he's a Democrat. Except he's an old white segregationist. He literally championed it. No, I mean literally. Go back and see what he said in the day. He's been in office longer than I've been alive. Go back and see what he said. He literally championed segregation. He opposed the integration of schools. And to that, he's on video saying he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. That's Joe Biden. So he's literally, you're defending an actual segregationist while you're accusing other people of what you think are segregationist policies, things that Joe Biden actually started. It just blows the mind. Do they not know the history of their own party? Do they not know what their party did 5 years ago? Good heavens. So where's the criticism of that? That's how you know these people don't mean anything that they say. If you cannot acknowledge that your own side's been doing this and started it, I can't take you seriously on anything else. I can't. Consistency is key. It doesn't matter whether you're on the right or left. You can still be on the left and have your leftist positions, and you can be on the right and have your rightist positions, but you got to be consistent. Otherwise, you're just a damn hypocrite sellout, and you shouldn't be taken seriously. And she's one of them. I mean, I'll give Biden credit. He started this. I'll give him credit when he was vice president under Barack Obama, and they were separating kids at the border. I mean, they could have ended the Flores agreement immediately so that people weren't renting a kid to get across the border, but they didn't do that. So at least they were trying to separate kids from these strange adults that they were coming across the border with, because an inordinate amount, and there was an IG report on this that came out 2 years into the practice that discovered that there were a lot of kids that were coming across the border with people that they A, didn't even know, or B, weren't even blood relatives. That's troubling. If you want to pretend to care about child sex trafficking, that's pretty bad. Let's fast forward to today's Times. I shared with you that New York Times article a couple of months ago. I've included it in the prep email many times, where they just discovered that about, 80,000 kids went missing. No idea where they went. No idea. I'm not making that up. That's the New York Times that wrote that. That bastion of conservatism. More conservative than Reagan, the New York Times, right, Kane? That's what they're known for, their legacy. They wrote that. And they quoted, was it Becerra? No, it wasn't Becerra. It was Mayorkas. They quoted him as saying that he was upset that they were not properly fast forwarding these kids through the process efficiently enough. They thought it could go faster, and he said that Henry Ford would have been disappointed that it didn't run like a conveyor system. assembly line. And, of course, now they can't account for all these kids. It's just truly stunning. So I hear sound bites like that, and it makes me mad because they don't care. These people don't actually care about illegal immigrants either. They don't care. They don't give a rat's ass what's happening down in Mexico. You know what? They're sitting here defending the guy who snorts the stuff that is the number one product for the people sending people across the border. I mean, he's their number one customer. You got the cartel's number one customer, who is the son of the president of the United States. They're going to act like they care. Hell, they fund the stuff that keeps it going. It goes up their nose. Come on. Now, a couple of other things. At least Mayorkas, audio soundbite 7. Where is he getting to by saying this? Listen to this. This is Alejandro Mayorkas.
We then went into an arduous, hard-working process to develop bipartisan Senate legislation that would have fundamentally fixed our asylum system and once and for all properly resourced this department and the Departments of Justice and State. Twice, Congress failed to pass that legislation, and so the president took this executive action within his lawful authority.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in his lawful authority. And he said only Congress can provide the enduring solution. Well, they could have, but also you have to realize the president's leadership, too. They were telling Democrats were like, no, we can't support H.R. 2. We can't do this. They didn't want any funding for the border. They wanted every dollar that could have gone. We don't need 100 machines to scan for fentanyl. We don't need 100 more immigration judges. That's what he's talking about doing. That's included in his executive order. He wants to fund that. The word that he used in the press conference that he held yesterday was investment. You guys know what that means. Sidebar. When you invest in something, do you get something out of it? Do you invest just for fun? Do you invest because you don't expect a return on your money? Because there's a difference between welfare and investment. There's a difference between charity and investment. There's a difference between theft and investment. This isn't an investment. You're not getting a return for the money that's being spent on what he thinks he needs for this executive order for the border. You're not getting a return on that in lowered crossings. You're not getting Border Patrol's not getting a return on that in terms of more manageable deluge across the southern border. They're not getting a return on that. You're not going to get a return on decreased amounts of fentanyl coming across the border. You're not going to get a return on the number of resources being depleted by the influx of people entering illegally. You're not even going to get your damn money back with interest. You're not going to get anything back. So let's stop. That's like asking someone, can I borrow a tissue? Are you going to give it back used? This is an investment. This is not an investment. It's theft. It's wasteful spending because it's not accomplishing anything. Wild. Just wild. Now, the loopholes in this, let me touch on this. Free Beacon had a nice wrap up because there are a number of loopholes in it. The memo is out publicly. They said, oh, well, we're going to shut the border down after 2,500 average illegal crossings a day over the course of the week. But they said any non-citizen may be permitted to enter under quote unquote urgent humanitarian conditions. Well, they're going to try to redefine what a humanitarian condition is. They've already done it. They've already been doing it. They're saying if it's an acute medical emergency, that's a new thing. Imminent extreme threat to life or safety, severe trafficking in persons. Those are things that are going to be incorporated into whether or not. So you're going to have a bunch of, oh, I got a medical emergency. Oh, I got this. That's what you're going to have. Fear of return also is a claim. Now, how many people can just claim that? These are all actual, this is included in the memo. The memo literally states that even if someone is placed in expedited removal, they can claim a fear of return, and that can be non-verbal. What? How? That's what the memo states. And they could be temporarily relieved of immediate deportation as a result of that. See what I'm saying? This isn't going to do anything. This is a joke. This is an optic. This is not going to decrease a damn thing. Nothing. And it's completely under HHS's discretion as to whether or not they'll close the border even with that number. That number doesn't immediately, automatically trigger a moratorium on crossings. That's up to the discretion, again, of a bureaucrat in D.C. that wasn't elected. Fascinating, isn't it? This is what we're dealing with. Now, I got a few other things we got to get into. We've been talking about Democrats and the polling, et cetera, on this. This is a Forbes piece. There are a number of states 6 states particularly, that are being slated as states to divide that are going to determine the election. One of the reasons that I thought Trump should pick Brian Kemp as a VP is because Georgia's one of them. Trump is only within margin of error lead in that state. Now, RCP's average, I think the average is actually, I think it's tighter than that, because the RCP will include push polling and campaign firm polling, meaning it can be literally a very slanted poll just to get a number that they can use in a press release to merch off as a headline. So they have the Real Clear Politics average, like for Georgia, for instance. I mean, it's within the margin of error. Because the polls that they're citing, they got a Fox poll, The Hill Emerson, New York Times, CNN, Cook Political Report, Bloomberg, Morning Consult. The Fox poll and I thought the New York Times poll were oversampled in favor of Republicans. I think it's a lot closer than that. I'm not trying to say that as like an insult to the candidate. I'm telling you, don't get comfortable, so you're going to rest on your laurels with stuff. I feel like they're trying to set you up to make you think like, oh, it's in the bag. They've done this before. They will present to you misleading polling, like when they were telling you there's a red wave coming in 2020. You know why it didn't manifest? Because they lied to you. They wanted to make you feel like it was going to be okay, that you didn't need to do anything. And guess what? People bought it. And Republicans already have a problem with not turning out. I will tell this story until I'm blue in the face. I live in the most conservative district in Texas that Ted Cruz lost by 2,000 votes. And it's not because there are more Democrat voters in this district than Republicans. It's that there were 3,000 registered Republican voters that did not vote. They did not turn out. And so that turned into a narrative. Oh, Democrats are making inroads in Texas. And guess what that did? That convinced big money donors to start spending more in Texas because of that. You see the domino effect here? This is why we got to nix this stuff. So I don't want y'all to get comfortable with this. These 6 states, you got Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think if you had Kemp as a VP, you'd lock up Georgia because he's still pretty well regarded in Georgia. And that would be huge.